Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Today I thought I'd do something that has to do with my Patreon. Every month I give them a different starter topic to maybe get some ideas going. And this month I chose birds or any kind of avian creatures. And so I thought maybe I'd do a bird project today. And so I sketched something up and I picked out a stone for its eye, and we'll see if I can pull it off. It's going to be kind of a one where I have to do a lot of carving with my rotary tool and filing and stuff to get things into shape the way I want them. So it'll be kind of a fun challenge and an experiment. Before I get started on that, I wanted to thank some people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters. I have a brand new one, Ron K. Thank you for signing up. I really do appreciate your support. I think and hope that you'll find that the group of people over there is a super cool group, and they have a lot of knowledge and they're willing to share it, and so it's kind of turned into a nice community over there. So thank you all of my patrons for your support, both financially and for creating such a nice environment over there. I appreciate that. My YouTube subscribers is the second group, and we just passed 24,800, which is amazing. Thank you so much. I do appreciate the comments. It's lovely when I find out that I've helped somebody, so thank you for telling me that when you do. And also thank you for the nice contributions, the buy me a coffees, the super thanks, the merch purchases, or when you buy my ebooks. All of those things make my channel sustainable and help me to continue doing this, so thank you for that. All right, well, let's get started on this bird project. So this is one of my design idea sketchbooks that are available on my merch store. This particular one has a gauge to inches to millimeters chart. This one's almost full, so I'm going to have to dig out another one pretty soon. Some of the other ones have different charts on the back related to metalsmithing, so check those out on the merch store. I find them super useful for keeping a record of what projects I've done and sketching up my designs in advance, so I can revisit them at a later time, which is oftentimes useful. So here's the one I did for Patreon last night. Alright, so this is what I had in mind today. And I do not know if I can pull this off. I've never done anything quite like this. But this is my thought. I picked out a little teardrop shaped faceted amethyst that I'm going to use for an eye. I went through all of my little teardrop shaped cabochons, and I didn't have anything that really suited this particular type of bird, which I don't even know what he would be, but it's kind of a montage of different types of birds I've seen. So this middle piece, I'm going to use a piece of low dome number 2, which I got from Rio. It looks like this stuff here. This is low dome number 2. It's about almost 13 millimeters wide, but it's got a nice little dome to it, so I'm going to carve this kind of thing out with my Dremel using a ball burr, and then use a file and sanding paper and stuff to make it kind of a swirly look, to give them kind of a plumage sort of aspect. And then we'll cut that out, and that'll be his body. The wings and the tail I'm going to make from round wire. I think this is going to be 14 gauge round, and we'll see how many layers we have to do that. But I think it gives it kind of a nice texture if we do that way. This, I have a little bit of wire that I made from an ingot, and where's it at? So I'm going to try and use this for the tail. It's a little bit wider than the 14. It's not quite 16, or it's not quite 12, I mean. But I'm going to flatten it out in portions of it to make it kind of flare out. It may not be quite that wide, but we'll see. And that'll make for a cool tail, I think. Lots of little things that solder together. So, but I think we'll start with the body and see if we can do something with that. And you saw I already I drew out the shape and the size of it out of with some black Sharpie on top of this metal, and then we'll just use a tiny ball burr to start those lines. We'll see how steady my hand is. And then we'll try and smooth it out and then cut it out with the saw, and that'll be our starting point. Oh, the head I'm going to take out of this piece of 16 gauge sheet that I made the other day, and we'll just cut that out. I made a little template by tracing that. And then I think I'm going to dome this a little bit to give it kind of a 3D aspect to it, since the rest of it's going to be kind of swirly and 3D-ish. And then we'll have to add a little beak on made out of a little piece of scrap or something. So, you know, just find something laying around and make that. So let's get the body made and maybe make the head, and then we'll start working on the wings and the tail. So I think let's go over to my rotary tool area, and we'll put a ball burr on there, and we'll see what we can do. Okay, we'll have to see if you can see this, but that's a very small ball burr. So I'm going to do my best to do this neatly. Should I put it in my vise or not? I think I'm going to start by doing it freehand, and we'll see what I can do. Turn this down to the lowest speed that I have. I'm going to switch it to a little bit bigger burr, and we'll see how that goes. This is an abrasive knife edge silicone light wheel. I think that's probably good. I'm going to draw an outline around it again, and then let's cut it off with the saw. I have a number, a 00 on here, so let's get started.
So I'll clean that up with the file and we'll see how it looks.
So the next step, this is going to be his head up here, so I'm going to cut this out with a saw just like I just did. So you'll see that I have this cut out, and of course that's not perfect. And you'll notice it's a little bit bigger too, and that's because I plan to dome it. So I can see I overestimated the size a little bit, so I'll have to take that down. And then I'll have to shape this a little better to match up against that. I'm also going to probably, I domed it a little bit. Now let's get it to where the back sits sort of flat. It's not a perfectly round shape. So cleaned that off and trimmed it, and I used the rotary tool to kind of smooth it out so it really looks like a curved head shape. And I did a little bit more trimming to try to get that closer. So I think we're ready to solder it on, so let's do that next. I use primarily hard silver sheet solder, which looks like that. I use a liquid flux that I dribble on with a dropper bottle. My torch is a Silversmith model. It's our acetylene air torch. It pulls in atmospheric air through here to mix with the gas. Produces about a 4,000 to 4,500 degree flame. Hotter than a propane or a butane torch, but not as hot as oxyacetylene. So it's great for silver. The tip I use is a number 1 generally. I'm going to cut a little bit of solder. Doing sculptural stuff like this is not really my normal thing, so this is a good challenge for me, I think. So it makes me do things I don't normally attempt to do. I'm making some marks on the body just so I make sure to get the head pretty. We want to get our head on straight. I'm going to do a little pick soldering, which is where I pick up some solder on the end of my titanium pick, heat this piece up to the soldering temperature, and then touch it where it needs to go. It's a great technique for getting solder into a place where you want it to be, and it's hard. Maybe it's a hard place to reach. So if you're interested in learning how to do it, I have a pretty good video right there. I'll put a link to it, so check it out. It's one of those skills that I found to be directly responsible for helping me to become better at this. That makes sense. It opened up a lot of possibilities as far as things I couldn't do prior to that. Cut off a little piece of this flattened 12 gauge square wire that I thought we could use as his little beak. So I'm going to attach it while it's still kind of rectangular, but then after we attach it we can kind of shape it into a triangle shape. Okay, where did you go? Kind of needs to go right here. Don't make me grab you by the beak. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now let's look at our drawing and figure out what we can do for wings. And I'll add that eye towards the end probably. So let's do this. 20, let's call it 25 millimeters. This is going to be 25 or 28. So let's do like 50. Find my 14 gauge round one. So like 53 maybe. One, two, three, four, five. Let's go 55 just to be safe. So if I do that, and then I file a notch, I guess I'm going to do this while I'm at it, so I don't have to measure twice. And for consistency's sake. So we're going to file a notch partway through the wire here so that I can bend it right there a little more sharply. See how that worked? Those ones we did 55, I think. These ones don't need to be as long, so let's do like 48. I don't know. Let's do. Also, just a little bit of soldering inside at the tip. If I want this to go all the way in there, probably should file some of that out of there. So I'm filing these notches steeper than 45. Actually, steeper than 90. So that I can get these to come to more of a point. Let me do this. Does that make sense? So we got to get this narrower to fit in there. So let's do a little bit of filing. Now we're talking. I think I'm going to try that and we'll see how that goes. I think I like the little hole there. I'll leave a little hole on each of them. I think it'll look better than trying to force it further in there, I think. So, okay. I'm going to repeat that process with this one, and I'm going to continue working downwards with smaller and smaller pieces. So, since I'm doing basically the same thing over and over again, you probably don't need to watch this over and over again. Okay, I got the wings done. So I think what I'm going to do is find a T-pin, and I put some marker on here so I could scribe a line. I'm going to set the wings underneath here in a way that I kind of like. And I'm just going to mark like that. I think I want these to solder behind it slightly, like that, to give it more three-dimensionality. So I'm going to try and do it that way. I might put a little lip on here. I'll be right back. I'm just going to use my Dremel to make a little lip so it's under there a little bit. Okay, I put a little lip on there, and now we're going to flux it and try and get it to stick on there. And I can make these a little more curvy. So I need to start building a tail. And like I said, I'm going to use that piece of stuff here. So let's okay, I'm going to anneal these because I pulled these through a draw plate a couple of times and they're probably pretty hard. Annealing is where you heat the metal up to the point where it's kind of a dull red color. And it's the opposite of work hardening, basically. It softens your metal back up after you've work hardened it. Hammering it, twisting it, and pounding it, and pulling it through a draw plate. Malformed it in some way. Okay, I thought since they narrow towards the top, in one dimension we can kind of go a little bit that way. And then towards the bottom they flare outwards the other way. So let's flip it 90 degrees. Probably going to have to anneal them again. I'll have to bend them, but these are not quite as wide as I had hoped. But we'll make do. If we curve that, that'll be just fine. So I'm going to make all of these kind of into similar things. And if we need to make more, we'll make more. I'm going to anneal these since I just work hardened them again. So bend them a little bit easier. So what I started doing was curving these in the correct direction. And I think I'm going to solder these first four together. I found a little bevel on the top edge on each side so that there would be a little bit of a seam between them. I didn't want them to all look like a homogeneous piece of metal. So yeah, this time. This is where I'm putting that bevel on the top, so if they don't solder completely together all the way to the top. I also think I need to start filing this down a little bit more up here. Okay, let's add those two. Okay, I'm going to make the other ones that are left over and solder them on, and then we'll add that too. So I have this all kind of soldered together, and I think I'm going to assemble these two now. I can get them to be kind of where I want them to be. Let's give that a shot and see how it turns out. Feels like that's on there. So I think I'm going to take a little break and maybe fix some dinner for my wife. We'll come back and we'll put that eye on and maybe put a little bail off the end of each of these wings and let it pickle. So we're going to be mounting this one on a curved surface, the head of this guy. And we may need to shape the bottom a little bit. This curve may be subtle enough to where I won't have to. But I'm not sure if this bird's going to look cool or cheesy. I haven't decided yet. I like his tail feathers so far. I think that's my favorite part. I could use that again in some other future bird project. Okay, let's remember we're dealing with a little tiny piece of silver here instead of a bigger piece. Since apparently my brain is digesting as well. I have after dinner. So my brain is digesting itself. Well, I meant to say, I've done a lot of animal pieces over the past few years, and so if you're interested in seeing any of the other ones I've done, I'll put a link up here to my animal-inspired playlist. I like making animal stuff sometimes. That's more like it. I want this to be kind of mounted. Kind of like right there. So we need to curve the bottom just slightly that way. And I'm just going to do that with the Dremel, with an abrasive white wheel. So I'm going to slightly cup that. Be right back. Okay, so I got the bottom of that curved just slightly. Let's see. And I think, so I had the head, when I was doing one of the previous soldering operations, dropped a little bit that way. So I thought I'd try and correct that at the same time as we did this. I'm going to flux both of these, and then I'm going to try and position this kind of like that. And probably while we're soldering this on to get the whole thing up to temperature, that head will pop back up and gravity will pull this body back down. So we'll see. It'll be a good experiment. There's a huge mass disparity between the body of this bird and this little thin bezel. So I'm not going to even focus much heat on that bezel until the very end. Most of it will be focused on the body of the bird down here. So just a couple of things left to do. I'm going to drill a hole right down at the kind of bulbous end of the teardrop here. It's relatively centered, a pretty small hole. And then I'm going to use my jeweler's saw to cut kind of a teardrop shape hole through that head that is slightly smaller than the bezel, so that I have kind of a step to set the stone on. And then we'll file this down to just towards just the right height above the girdle of the stone. We'll set it there. But prior to doing that, we need to solder on a couple of rings here, I think. I was thinking about running a ring on the chain through those, but these tips stick out a little bit too much, maybe. So, although I think that would be more pleasing to the eye, honestly. So maybe I'll do that. Okay, so got everything kind of polished up and filed down to the right level. I do this a little differently than some. I use the side of my chain nose pliers as a bezel pusher. I'm just going to kind of gently put a little pressure on either side. do the little burnishing with this part of it. It's pretty solid. And what I've done on this is I split an 18-inch chain, and I was going to run a jump ring right through each of these. Okay. Let's see where we started and where we ended up. That is kind of what I was shooting for, honestly. So, if I was to give myself any criticism, I might taper this down lower so it smooths more into the rest of it. And I might rethink the wings a little bit. I'm not sure if I love those. I like the concept in general, and I think that's an attractive necklace, so someone will love that. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you would have done different. You know, I'd love to hear your comments, so let me know what you think. Okay, well that was a bird pendant, and I hope you enjoyed that piece. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you go, and I'd love it if you'd take a moment and visit my main channel page. I have about 550 videos over there. I do one on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, so there's almost certainly something useful or interesting to check out over there. So check a few of those out. Subscribe to my channel. I'd love to have you as a follower. There's no cost for that, but it does help me to get my channel promoted, so thanks for that. The other thing is, check out the video description down below. There's some important links there. In addition to information about this project, there's a link to my Patreon if you want to find out more about that cool community over there. There's multiple tiers of membership, the lowest tier being $5 a month, and that gets you my YouTube videos without any kind of YouTube advertisements, so that's kind of nice. The other tiers feature some other perks like Patreon exclusive videos, live streams that I do with different groups. It's a great place with a lot of cool people in it, so check it out if you're interested in that. I'd love to have you as a member of that community as well. There's a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks that I showed you at the beginning. Those are super handy, and it's a nice way to keep track of your projects, so get yourself one or two of those. There's a link to my ebooks, which are guides to each year's video tutorials, the most recent one being 2024's. Currently working on 2025's and should be available right after the first of the year. But for now, 2024's is available, and it has a page for each of the videos that I did last year. Each of the pages includes my original sketch for the project, a final picture of what I produced, a list of materials you need to make the project, and a difficulty rating, which is a little on the subjective side, I suppose, but also some notes about the project itself that I might not have talked about in the video, including things like, did I like the outcome? Would I change things if I was to do it again? What did I learn from it? Because oftentimes I learn something new from doing a project because I figure something out. So if you get it, it's a nice way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips, as well as a super nice way to support my channel. So thank you in advance for that if you do that. All right, well, thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.